My name is Nick Guzman, and I did my art research project on the art of surfboard shaping and how the surfboards that we ride today have come a long way from surfing's origin. The design of the surfboard has played a critical part in surf history and has allowed surfers to push the limits of surfing to what was not thought possible. Shapers tend to be surfers themselves, and board design is as much as an engineering feat as it is a love for surfing. Throughout history, surfers have developed enough knowledge about the ocean's waves and are able to design boards that are unique for any surfer, any size wave, and any type of surf condition. This progression is all thanks to the ancient Hawaiians of the late 1700s when they very first began riding waves. The first collision between alien forces and Polynesian culture was in January of 1778 when Europe's Captain Cook landed at Waimea on Kauai. It was here that Cook and his crew were the first to witness the native Hawaiians riding on the backs of waves and surfing, and the crew couldn't believe their eyes, as it appeared that the Hawaiians were walking on water. Surfing was a deeply spiritual affair, from the art of riding waves itself to praying for good surf and the rituals that surrounded the construction of a surfboard. It was not only a recreational activity, but a training exercise for Hawaiian chiefs and noblemen. The chief, or ali'i, was the most skilled wave rider in the community and usually had the best board made from the best tree. At the time, there were two kinds of surfboards: the olo, which was rowed by these chiefs and noblemen, and the alaia, which was rowed by commoners. The olo was a long, thick, narrow, finless surfboard usually built from the wila wila wood and was thought to be exclusively used by Hawaiian royalty. These boards ranged anywhere between 14 to 18 feet long and weighed upwards of 150 pounds. Before constructing an olo surfboard, the ancient Hawaiians first prayed to the tree in which the board was to come from. The tree was then cut down and carried to a beachfront canoe shed so that it could be properly shaped. The Hawaiians used tools made of coral and stone to shape the tree into a long plank, and was then stained with mud and rubbed with coconut oil as a finishing touch. It was important that these boards be properly rinsed with fresh water after their construction, as the salt water is corrosive over time. The alaia, a board rowed by commoners, was much smaller and simpler than the olo. This board featured a thin body with a round nose and square tail that ranged between 7 to 12 feet. It was made from the ulu and koa trees, which were much more available than the expensive wila wila wood that was used for the olo surfboard. The alaia is still used as a surfboard today and is usually individually shaped with redwood, cedar, pine, and balsa wood. Typically, commercially sold alaias are made out of palanowia, a wood that is optimal for surfboard crafting due to its good weight-to-strength ratio. While today's surfing has advanced much further than its Hawaiian roots, surfers enjoy a classic summer surf session on the wooden alaia. That is, if they're technically gifted enough to ride a board of such skill. Born to an Irish sea captain father and half-Polynesian mother on November 8, 1883 in Oahu, Hawaii, George Freeth was an exceptional waterman and is known for making the next big step in surfboard history. While only 1/4 Hawaiian, Freeth was blue-eyed and relatively fair-skinned and was regarded to as a haole by the rest of the islanders. He began surfing at the age of 19 and was amongst the first to introduce the idea of angling across the wave as opposed to heading straight for shore. In 1907, Freeth gave a surf lesson to a visiting American novelist, Jack London, who then referred to Freeth as a sea god in his article for Woman's Home Companion magazine. Later that year, Freeth had the idea of cutting his 16-foot Hawaiian-style longboard in half and sailed with his modification to the California coast in hopes of popularizing the sport on the mainland. He took to surfing the waves of Southern California, and in the summer of 1909 was hired as the first professional surfer, giving surf demonstrations in front of Redondo Beach, and promoted the opening of Henry Huntington's new beach access railway. Here we see posters from Freeth's sponsorship and the modified surfboard that Freeth had began to popularize. One of the most famous names in surf history, Tom Blake, was unexpectedly born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1902. Blake was a natural waterman and a world-class swimmer, which led him to becoming a California beach lifeguard in 1924. There he found a natural talent in surfing and began to take surf trips to Hawaii every year to surf the legendary Hawaiian waves and to compare the different types of surfboards that the locals were riding. During this era, Tom realized that surfboards were still very heavy and very long, as they were made from solid pieces of redwood. In 1926, Blake built the first hollow surfboard by stringing together an outline of wooden planks and then clamping around a wooden exterior. While the Hawaiians first ridiculed Blake's surfboard and called it the cigar board, they were quickly shut up after they saw how much faster the board glided in the water. Blake had successfully reduced the overall weight of the surfboard from around 100 pounds down to just about 50 pounds. In just 4 years, Blake's invention was the first surfboard to become mass-produced and sold commercially. It was even adopted as a paddle rescue board by lifeguards. But Blake was not satisfied at just that. In 1935, he created what was known as the fixed fin. This was a 4-inch deep, 1-foot long fin attached to the bottom of the surfboard's tail that allowed surfers to ride on a tighter angle across the face of the wave. The fin also gave surfers more stability and provided the ability to perform sharp maneuvers down the line. Known as the father of the modern surfboard, Bob Simmons was born in 1919 in Los Angeles, California. At the age of 16, Simmons was hit by a car while riding a bicycle, and he broke his left elbow, which then the joint had to be fused back together at a 45-degree angle. In the hospital, Simmons was advised to take up surfing to help strengthen his arm, and it was then that he realized his skill in the sport. As a high school dropout, Simmons passed the admittance test into the California Institute of Technology and became a part-time engineering student learning about aerospace and hydrodynamics. Due to his arm injury, Simmons was excluded from the World War II draft and began surfing and shaping surfboards while others were sent to war. In 1949, Simmons applied the engineering aspects of his education to surfing and came out with a model board known as the Simmons Sandwich. This board featured a 24-inch wide, thin, squared-off tail, finely turned and calibrated rails, and a broad spoon-like nose. While pre-war surfboards for the most part were made out of redwood, Simmons worked out of his garage in Pasadena and only used balsa wood. It was here that he became one of the first shapers to cover his wooden boards with a layer of resin-saturated fiberglass. This gave the surfboard a better structure and more buoyancy. The Simmons Sandwich weighed in at about 25 pounds and was known for being able to be put on a more acute angle across the wave face due to its dual fin system. Simmons took his design of the surfboard and traveled up and down the coast of California while selling the boards out of an old Ford car that he was living in. George Freeth, Tom Blake, and Bob Simmons all played a major role in surfing history and have influenced many other shapers to redefine the limits of surfing. Since their passing, legendary big wave surfers Greg Knoll and George Downing developed the modern-day gun, which is a board designed to be long and narrow so that surfers can control themselves on triple overhead drop-ins. An Australian surfer, Simone Anderson, also designed a 3-fin thruster, which allows for short boards to have the most optimal control. Today, the thruster is widely used by surfers across the world for its high performance in any size of surf. These boards range anywhere between 5 to 7 feet long and are the board of choice by all professional World Surf League competitors. The 3-fin setup allows for a variety of different shapes of the surfboard's nose, tail, rail, deck, stringer, and rocker, which all contribute to an overall unique performance. The rocker, or a surfboard's curvature, is an important feature because the curvature of the deck accelerates the water to reach its peak velocity when gliding in front of and through the back end of the board. Introduced about a decade ago, epoxy resin is a relatively new trend in the surfboard industry. Modern surfboard shapers are working with epoxy for its incredible strength and durability, as well as its positive effect on the shaper and their environment. When working with polyurethane, shapers must wear protective masks to prevent from inhaling volatile organic compounds. Epoxy emits 50 to 70% less of these compounds, and the surfboards are known to last much longer. Who knows where the future of surfboard shaping will take us, and what type of waves we will have the ability of riding in the future.